All right. We are hanging out talking about wireless stuff, right? We all care about what they know and who's watching and privacy. And every once in a while, I am blessed with brushing with some really, really smart people. And these are two of them, and their backgrounds together are quite impressive. All right. Working with the precursor to Tor, with zero knowledge systems, the Freedom Network, being involved very early with Blockstream, as well as a history with C-level positions at River and others. These are wicked smart people that are setting out to really disrupt really three big separate industries, but we're really talking about wireless to start. And this is our second time hanging with the Cloaked Wireless dudes. Last time they were not yet in market and they were going through this challenging FCC approval process, which I'm sure we're going to hear all about how it went. But spoiler alert, they are live now with a real product. And we invested then and we're investing again. So we are just having a little conversation, catching up and hanging out for all things wireless today. So I'm here with Jeremy and Jonathan. And how you guys doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, doing really
Same
well.
here.
Thanks for having us again, Wells.
Yeah, well, we're doing the best we can do. So if you don't know about Cloaked, you can check out cloakedwireless.com. Shout out to Sats Back. Make sure you get some of those Sats back when you go ahead and order Cloaked. So we're going to talk about all these different plans. This is US based, of course. I know they have some sort of global roaming, but live here in the US. And you should check it out. You should check out the differences here as far as cryptographically stopping SIM swaps and all these kind of problems that really plague Bitcoiners and just people in general, high level people who really care. They have this really cool thing on their website. I messed with it, and you just put in your phone number, and it is really scary what is out there about you. At least I was pretty freaked out after I put mine in there. So yeah, I definitely would do this on their website and see what comes up for you because I was pretty shocked,
Yeah,
actually.
it's wild. We had some folks respond to that scam and are exactly like you said. They go through it and they're like, how the hell does this know who my mother is and who my wife is and the last three apartments that I've had? Right. And what's terrifying is that that's exactly the kind of information that these hackers are using to call up your carrier and have them perform that SIM swap.
For
And just
sure.
to, to the iceberg, there's a lot more databases that we could tap into. It would just cost even a few dollars, but that's just, I think, less than 5 cents worth of data we're pulling.
Terrifying.
So it's privacy and security focused from a wireless provider. And, we can talk about some of your competitors and all that stuff too, but claiming the best protection for SIM swap attacks and not bad service either from what I've heard. So that is Cloaked Wireless. Now, where does the Bitcoin come in? Where does Bitcoin come into this? We're going to talk about that too. But so from then to now, do you want to just go over a little high level of what's changed? Because previously you guys were waiting to get licensed and now you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So the FCC approval process is painful to say the least. I think this is a government industry that has increased in size exponentially, over the last couple decades. And I won't get into my gripes. I think the taxes that the FCC imposes on every wireless user in the US is astronomical and has grown 10x over the last couple of years. So anyways, all that to say that it was a hard process. We did get through the FCC approval process and launched in March. And the response has just been awesome. Like so many people telling us that this is what they've been looking for, the kind of solution that they've been looking for. I think there's been some other players who have tried to solve the SIM swap issue in the past. but their solutions are either just make it really painful to do a SIM swap. And for us, we don't think that's the solution, right? Because SIM swaps are necessary. You need to do a SIM swap if you're going to change your phone, especially with eSIMs today. That's how you move your phone number to a different device, is by swapping your SIM. And so if a carrier solution is simply, we're going to force you to wait 2 weeks to do a SIM swap, well, it's not practical. If you have to go to a notary to do a SIM swap, that's not practical. Our solution, you can go into your dashboard and you can swap your SIM 5 times within 5 minutes without ever talking to a customer service rep. And that's really what we wanted to do. We wanted to take all those things that you need to call customer service to have them do for you, and just put that in front of the customer and let them do it themselves. Want to change your phone number? Do it yourself. Click a button, bam, your phone number's changed. That's really kind of what we discovered, customers ultimately wanted. They don't want to sit on hold for 10 minutes and talk to customer service just to do something they could do themselves.
So then launching and being live now, how's it going? I mean, how have you found it getting to this point? I'm talking about growth and churn, and how's it been?
Great. It's been fantastic. I think it's a lot of learnings. We focused a lot on making sure that we understand our metrics, our key performance indicators. And so making sure that we have a really firm grasp on what our customer acquisition costs are, is that's one of the really key performance indicators for us. I think some of the learnings we've had has been really neat as well. Like, I think, we really imagine the service focused on individuals, people in the Bitcoin and crypto space, people in the InfoSec space for businesses. One of the things that we found is that we have a lot of subscribers who are victims of domestic abuse and cyber stalking and cyberbullying. And so folks who have been, harassed, and where their harassers have leveraged carriers to find out where they are or mess with their services, have found kind of a safe haven with Cloaked Wireless. And it was kind of surprising. So it wasn't a vertical that we thought was going to be a big customer base, but we found more and more that we had a lot of our customers that are signing up and finding peace of mind from kind of threats in their own lives.
A lot of what happens is someone who's stalking someone vulnerable will wind up calling up the provider, pretending to be them, getting information about their bill, getting information about whether they're a customer, so forth, getting an update on the phone number. All these things, if you're able to have a bit of knowledge about someone's social security number, birth date, etc., it'll often get you a lot of information through the carrier. So we have a system that you can just be completely anonymous. No one has your information at all. You can pay with Bitcoin or Monero, and there's no billing information necessary. And you can be whatever name you want. We don't care.
So this is the first part of the business. So why don't you talk about how this is a big business? And, as far as a privacy focused network, who are the other players? I know there's a lot of security companies, but from this perspective, who are you up against? Who's the incumbent in this space?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, the US wireless industry is one of the biggest globally. And certainly when we talk about privacy and security focused wireless, there aren't that many players. And then to your point, there are a few other security focused players in the space. When we talk about privacy and security, I think we really are the only one right now. If we look at a company like SME that is trying to solve to the SIM swap attack issue as well, their solution is, I think, $100 a month, starts at $100 a month. Their solution is not private. So you do have to provide credit card information and personal information. They don't have a payment option other than that. And their solution to the problem is create as many hurdles between the customer and being able to swap a SIM as possible. So 2-week freezes, having to go to see a notary, what they claim is 11 proprietary solutions. And so, Jonathan and our solution is really, we really focused on just building something that is open source and very clear and very obvious how it's done, right? So when you want to authenticate yourself to log into your dashboard, you use one of 3, proven open source authentication technologies, and you get to choose which one you use, right? And so we're not relying on, what the name of your first pet was in order to authenticate you. We're relying on proven authentication technologies. It's like that. It's the famous saying, right? Like, not your keys, not your coin. Well, it's not your keys, not your number. And that's kind of the principle behind this. Now, the privacy factor, I think, is becoming more and more important, right? We see these massive leaks of customer data from the likes of T-Mobile, AT&T, and all of that data is now out there and being used by these hackers to, potentially SIM swap you in the future. So even if you haven't been, a victim of SIM swaps in the past, your information very possibly could have been leaked in one of these massive leaks from these carriers. And now you're even more at risk of that, of being a victim of those types of attacks. And so really
And kind of
the best of, yeah, go ahead.
and kind of by definition, if it's your carrier who had the data leak, that's all the information they have on you. So if you're trying to attack an account that is held by one of those providers, you have just been handed the, keys to the city for all of those customers. It's all the data they have to authenticate you. So now you have all that data. You can provide all the answers they would know to authenticate you with.
Yeah, I think that ability to sign up anonymously, it has really been a big draw and something that people, I think, really appreciate.
Okay. So we're just doing a quick recap from then to now. And for anyone who doesn't know, Cloaked is live and they've had many happy customers. So on the churn, how's it been so far? Like, what have you learned?
Yeah, so typically you'll see a really high churn rate within MVNOs and MNOs, right? And so people who create new numbers when they sign up tend to churn more than customers who port numbers in. We've seen a really healthy balance of both, but what we're seeing is that our churn rate is dramatically lower than industry standards. I think, my hypothesis around that is that when you look at what other carriers are offering, it's really just about who can, offer you the cheapest service, bundle the most things like new phones or HBO Max or Netflix. There really isn't any distinction with regards to the real value prop of that service today. And so when people move to Cloaked Wireless, they're moving for the security, they're moving for the privacy, they're really moving because we offer a value prop that can't be offered elsewhere. And because they're moving for a reason, it's also why they're not moving away. And so that's really kind of what's behind that lower churn rate. When we talk about margins, we're completely online, and so there's not only do we not have any brick or mortar costs, but we also have dramatically lower support costs because our customers are able to go in and do everything for themselves. Our support and operation teams can't modify customer accounts, right? And so because of that, we're just have fewer customers calling in to have support do things that they can do themselves by just logging into their dashboard. And so finally, when it comes to customer acquisition costs, again, we're seeing almost half, our customer acquisition costs are almost half of what the industry standards are for MVNOs. And again, the reason for that is that we are being very specific in targeting verticals where our offering and value prop really resonates. And because of that, we are acquiring customers at dramatically lower cost than industry standard. So these are really all the highlights and indicators for us that it's, now's the time to really lean in and scale that part of the business.
So the network is live, and let's talk about some partnerships so far, because this seems like a great product that would be awesome for the Bitcoin community. And, it's not really much talked about just yet. So what partnerships have you had? I think you have a few that are going on right now. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, one of the ones we're really excited about is partnering with Blockstream. So we've partnered with Blockstream to include a free month of Cloaked Wireless with every Jade device that's shipped in the US. So I think it's a great example of how, one, these two complementary offerings, because obviously Bitcoiners are being targeted more now than ever with these SIM swap attacks, but also by adding, what is effectively almost a $75 value add to a Jade device, like what an awesome bonus to get a free month of wireless when you purchase that kind of Bitcoin wallet. And so I think it's a great example of the type of partnerships that we're developing and working on right now. And so I think within the first quarter of this year, we'll be able to announce some other partnerships that we're working on right now with some exchanges as well. So making sure that people who are purchasing Bitcoin on exchanges also have exposure and know about this offering and this type of protection that they can get. So yeah, so we're really excited about the opportunity that some of these partnerships bring to Cloak Wireless.
So we're going to get into the complicated stuff here, but cloaked wireless, cloaked core, cloaked network, just closing it out with the roadmap here. Is there anything that you can touch on with where we're at now as far as on the wireless side? Because cloaked has much bigger, what do you call it? The audacious, big, hairy, audacious goals and
Yeah.
ambition beyond this, which this is amazing. But can you just go through this roadmap real quick, kind of where you are now and what you see?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we can talk, excuse me, to your point, Cloaked Wireless, excuse me. And Cloaked Wireless does have its own roadmap. We're going to be launching the Cloaked Wireless mobile app this year. It's going to introduce kind of access to your dashboard directly from your wireless device. And by getting onto the device, it's going to enable us to offer some additional kind of security and privacy features for the Cloaked Wireless side. Now, the roadmap that you're seeing here is really kind of the greater roadmap for Cloak Services, the parent company. And to your point, Mike, we do have this big, hairy, audacious goal, our BHAG, of creating, private and secure communications for everyone that is open source. And so when we look at Cloaked Wireless, what we've created today is that we own and control the tech stack from where T-Mobile gives us our wholesale feed to where the customer consumes it and interacts with it. And today, a lot of those components are open source. Some of them are still third party and proprietary. We're slowly swapping those out just so that we can have more control and make, that stack more secure. The happy outcome of that is that we end up with a fully open source MVNO stack that we can release and that people can leverage to spin up their own MVNOs. That's just a nice outcome of Cloaked Wireless and the work we're doing at Cloaked Wireless. When it comes to Cloak Network, that's the other really big product offering on our roadmap. And that I think is a continuation of the work that Jonathan and I and Adam Back and many others started in the year 2000 at Zero Knowledge Systems. And I think it has the potential to really realize what the Freedom Network and what Tor was supposed to be, right? And I think this has the potential to really realize that dream.
So lay it on us then. Let's
So
hear it. How's it going?
we've got a proof of concept built that works for routing packets over the network. We're making payments for that packet routing over the Show Me and Mint. It's a complete end-to-end demo. We have the major reason for doing this though is because when you are accessing the internet on your phone, you're not really anonymous. You're tracked every possible way you can imagine, and from your cell phone providers selling your location data to third-party vendors to just the stuff that's happening at the web level when you're browsing, and just all of your voice data and SMS data. And so in order to actually finally address that, we had to go deeper into the stack than we're able to do with just Cloak Wireless and being an MVNO. So we needed to build a network that would be large enough to carry the kind of traffic that we wanted to be able to provide our customers. And that involves, essentially replacing something like the Tor network. Tor has been broken for a decade or more, at least, because of the protocol it's built on, and because it never was meant to defend against the level of surveillance that is present on the internet today. So it's fairly easy if you are, a nation state or even just a large network vendor to identify who is who on the Tor network because of the way the onion routing works. It goes over TCP. If you interrupt the connection and terminate it, that termination has certain effects that are stack based, and you can tie it to the internet connection of the user who's coming into the network. The reason we're using HTTP3 instead of that is HTTP3 uses a UDP based protocol, which isn't susceptible to the same kinds of things. It has built-in streams so that you can't correlate a burst of data with one site to be associated with the client at the other end, seeing a large chunk of data come through, or delay or termination. There's multiple streams running at a given moment, and that basically serves as cover traffic for your entire connection. So the sites that you're connecting to through the network are not easy to correlate. You don't also see the kind of connection termination breakdown that you do with the TCP protocol. HTTP3 has all these connection roaming and multi-path features that allow you to safely do that and survive any attack, essentially. So that is the necessary step to allow all of our wireless users to be able to browse securely and privately. And that's the kind of thing that we want to be able to build. We want to be able to get to a point where the level of surveillance isn't just crushing and a massive disincentive to be online at all.
And one thing we haven't spoken about is just like how does Cloak Services profit from Cloak Network, right? So the Cloak Network is completely open source. Anyone will be able to download the client or download the software to operate their own node. And the way that Cloak Services will profit from that is that we're obviously going to be putting out a lot of the initial nodes. So we'll never own or operate more than 33%. No one can ever own or operate more than 33% of the nodes on the network. And we've designed a reputation-based system that will control how quickly people can add new nodes and how many nodes they can own and run. But based on that reputation system and our early involvement, we will try and maintain at least as close to 30% of the nodes on the network at any given time, which means that we should be able to collect 30% of the revenues from the network at any given time over the network. And again, this is global at launch, right? So this isn't starting in the US market and then going, no, this is at launch, open and available for everyone around the world. And because payments are all done through Bitcoin and through the Show Me Mint, there's no requirement for us to set up entities globally where this is being used. We really will have a global product where anyone in the world can pay a couple of bucks to gain, very fast, reliable, and secure wireless access or sorry, internet access.
So walk us through this right here. Walk us through how using the Cloaked Network would work. Is it replacing the VPN? Is it complementing the VPN? If I'm already a node operator, how am I now further incentivized by anonymizing packets of data? Is that just like flipping a switch? Because talk about this.
Yeah. So maybe like an easy and at a 30,000 foot view. So first of all, yes, this replaces your VPN. This replaces Tor. Okay. So you can think of it, there's really three components. There's the client. So if you used the VPN client before, now you're going to use the Cloak Network client, right? And in that client, you can load it with 1,000 Satoshis or 2,000 Satoshis. Those automatically get exchanged for Cloak Sats at the Show Me and Mint. So the second piece of software there is the Show Me and Mint. And that's just anonymizing your payments. So now you've got a bunch of anonymized Cloak Sats. And as you go and browse, you're going to pay a couple of sats to the node operators who are anonymizing and routing your data packets. So if you want to run a Cloak Network node, then you download that node software. You maybe load it on your laptop or on a little Raspberry Pi that you've got in the corner, just like you would a Lightning node, right? And it's just, you're going to set it up. You're going to decide, hey, do I want to offer this for free? Like the Tor node operators do, which you can, or you can say, hey, I'm going to charge a little bit so that people who don't want to wait, through because a free node is maybe busy, they'll pay a couple of sats and get priority access. So they make those settings and then they sit back and they just collect sats for anonymizing and running those packets. And so now we have this network that's similar to Tor, except people are properly incentivized to run the nodes. You've got this $12 billion and growing global VPN market, which can now shift over to Cloak Network, which is more secure, more private, decentralized, and costs less. And then you have these 60% of Lightning nodes, you have all these Lightning nodes that are operating over Tor, as well as the Bitcoin nodes that can now move over to the Cloak Network and run on the Cloak Network where they're not susceptible to some of the attacks and interruptions that are happening because they're hosted on Tor today.
Right. We saw a big DDoS a couple of years back during summer that resulted in a huge number of Lightning nodes having their channels terminated. And it was done so at a time when fees were exceptionally high as well. So that was a major attack on the network itself, and something that would not happen with the Cloak Network.
So pretty big brains here. Why is everyone excited about this? Can you talk about, I don't know if everyone's listed here that you can really talk about, but run through kind of who's in your ear on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, when we started this, Austin Hill, who was the founding CSO founding
Yep.
CEO at Zero Knowledge Systems and at Blockstream, kind of brought Jonathan and I together, and put us in contact with some of the early team at Blockstream, like Greg Maxwell and Adam Back, and obviously Jonathan, having worked at Blockstream, had worked and knew a lot of these guys as well, and so we really set about tackle this privacy thing that we had worked on before. And I think, leveraging some of those innovations that had come out of Blockstream and Jonathan's background, we were really able to, realize some really good solutions to just problems that haven't been solved, like the SIM swap attack. Jonathan, I remember when we founded the company, Jonathan told me a story of one of the Blockstream guys was getting SIM swapped attack in front of their faces. John, I don't know if you remember that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so,
one of the employees we had all the security set up at the carrier level, all the pins, et cetera, that were supposed to be there, protections. Only certain people were allowed to make changes, but they were able to bypass that entirely by bribing an employee.
yeah. And so I think, I think people are excited because they see how we've gone about solving that problem and understand it to be the right solution. And I think even more than that, I think when folks have looked into the Cloak Network, who have read the white paper, they really do see that the solution that we've proposed solves some massive issues when it comes to how people access the internet privately today. And when you really understand how poor the current solutions are, I think it makes you even more excited about seeing something like the Cloak Network realized, which will, for the first time, enable anyone in the world to access the internet completely anonymously. And, we think that's a big deal. And I think a lot of our advisors and investors think that as well.
We also think that it gives back a lot to the people who become part of the community. If you're running a Cloak node, you'll be making significantly more money than running a Lightning node, or if you're a small miner for a very trivial investment, it costs a Raspberry Pi or one of those mini PCs, or just an old machine you have lying around. You'll be able to be receiving on the order of $200 a month easily.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems with Tor today is that the node operators on Tor are doing it out of the goodness of their heart, and bless them. But there aren't going to be enough people who are motivated to do that and who are as passionate about privacy to maintain a network. It has to be properly monetized. And when you have $12 billion of revenue going to companies offering inferior VPN solutions, it's very easy to see a large portion of that shifting over to a better and more decentralized solution like the Cloak Network.
So where are you at in the timeline for the Cloaked Network?
Yeah, so with the Cloak Network, we're hopeful to launch the MVP by the end of the year. So as Jonathan mentioned, the proof of concept has been completed. We know that what we're proposing technically works and can be done. Now it's just a matter of building it out and getting the MVP launched. Right now, we're hyper focused on scaling Cloaked Wireless. We're on the verge of profitability, and we believe we can get to self-sustaining growth by the end of in Q3 of this year. That also gets us to a place where we can invest more in the development of the Cloak Network. And so making sure that we balance those priorities is something that we're very, very sensitive about. Like, we want to make sure that we're prioritizing Cloaked Wireless and making sure that it's getting to a place where it's funding its own growth and it has that self-sustaining growth. And at the same time, making sure that the Cloak Network development can continue and get to a place where we can have it launched and people using it by the end of this year.
So what are like the biggest regulatory hurdles with building sort of a privacy first telecom company?
So I think the FCC approval process was the biggest hurdle. I'm not sure if it was complicated because we were accepting Bitcoin, that we were very upfront about accepting Bitcoin as payment, and that we were a privacy focused carrier. There were some additional complications because our parent company is Canadian based, even though Cloak Wireless is a US based company. But that's really the biggest hurdle. We were very cautious at first when it came to highlighting some of the issues around the FCC and the wireless industry, because we were a little bit worried about stepping on toes. I think for anyone who follows us on Twitter, they'll know that tone has changed. I think We want to be a loud voice that's pointing out some of the massive problems with the wireless as well as with the FCC. And so we will continue to do that. I think certainly under the current administration, I think we'll hopefully see a little bit less government interference in the industry, but we're certainly not going to back down. We're going to make sure that we are a loud voice, that we're pointing out a lot of the privacy issues, a lot of the security issues that are just rampant, both with the wireless, but also with what the FCC allows to happen. You know, they've multiple administrations have come out and had the FCC say that the SIM swap issue had to be solved. No one has solved until Cloaked Wireless launched in March. I think it's just a demonstration of the ineffectiveness of that organization.
So, what's next? You're raising funds, you're in market. What is the next big goal? Are you just gonna get user mode and just get to crank up the subs? Is it more partnerships like the Blockstream for the Jade? What's sort of your strategy for acquiring customers now going forward?
Yeah, I think it's threefold. Like I said, it's now turning up the volume on that customer acquisition channels that we kind of tested out at launch. So we've been really effective on Twitter advertising, some of the different online advertising channels. So from that perspective on the consumer offering, we're really just going to turn up the volume there. From partnerships, 100%. Things like Jade, as well as some of the partnerships we work with on different exchanges, where when people sign up for accounts or sign up to buy Bitcoin, that they're being offered and exposed to Cloak Wireless. And then the third one is really around B2B, right? There is not one company that has an InfoSec team or key employees that shouldn't have their key employees secured with a Cloak Wireless line. Whether that means their primary line is with Cloak Wireless or whether the company subsidizes, a $25 secure second eSIM that they use for all their SMS-based 2FA. But the B2B space is, I think, a huge opportunity that we haven't even begun to start tapping into, because more and more, both within, private companies, but also, in the public realm, with judges and police officers and security folks, a lot of them are being targeted with these types of attacks as well. So we think there's a huge opportunity in the B2B space and in kind of the corporate space as well.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more things where an entire company's web presence is taken over. If you're able to, do a deep fake of a company executives and so forth, you're able to get into even the Mark Monitor protected sites. A lot of that is just based on a phone call and them recognize your voice and doing a, video call or whatever. And if you're able to be convincing in that, you can get your DNS registrar information for the domain pointed somewhere else. And then the whole system is controlled by someone else. And that's something we've seen on a couple of occasions, but it's just getting more widespread.
So the U.S. has a $385 billion wireless industry. And as large carriers and MVNOs struggle to differentiate themselves, and as privacy and security continue to rise in importance, especially with all the stuff with AI going on, I think a solution like ours just becomes more and more attractive going forward. And I think we're starting to get noticed even, places the other day, Jack Dorsey made a post about us on Noster. I think the word about Cloak Wireless is getting out there even ahead of, the stuff that we're doing ourselves to promote the service. So that's really awesome to see.
So, okay. So I want to close it out here with just a couple more questions. So in this current fundraise, your growth strategy and the earmark for the use of funds there, what are you going to do with this money after you raise it?
So the cash is primarily going to go to that kind of first goal of subscriber growth for Cloaked Wireless. So we're going to use it on kind of all three of those fronts, driving that online advertising so we can grow the subscriber base, focusing on some of those partnerships, and then also diving into the B2B space on Cloaked Wireless. This funding allows us to get to self-sustaining growth with Cloaked Wireless. So the revenue from Cloaked Wireless will be enough to continue its growth as well as fund the development of the Cloak Network. So the Cloak Network side will start up again because it's been on pause since the launch of Cloak Wireless. We'll be starting the Cloak Network development again by the second half of this year. And so some of those funds that we're raising in this round will be earmarked for that development, but that development will also be funded by revenue from Cloak Wireless as well. I think one of the advantages of kind of our product strategy is that we have the successful product with Cloak Wireless, and very quickly it's able to fund and support the growth of and development of the Cloak Network as well.
Cool. So then as far as like key team members, is Jonathan just building this thing siloed on his own over there? And then when that goes live, it's not like a requirement that you have to be running a node to be a cloaked node operator, right? I understand that you're targeting them because, they already have a device and can just turn on the monetization. But if somebody wanted to just like download it themselves and have nothing to do with running a Bitcoin node, can they do that?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And so, the way that people can interact with the Cloak Network is really twofold. One, they can just download a Cloak Network node and just, monetize it, make some money, stick it, like Jonathan said, on a Raspberry Pi in the corner, like you would a Lightning node. Or people can use it to browse and access the internet. So they can just download the client and just like they would a VPN client, just use it to privately access and interact with the internet. You'll have a lot of users that do both, right? That'll have their own node and also browse the internet anonymously with their client. And so you'll have users with both. And then, the second you're doing that, or even if you aren't either of those, you will be able to, host a Bitcoin node on the Cloak network, in the same way that you do on Tor today. So the network, the use of the network, either you're doing it as a node operator or as someone using that network with a client. And then once that network is up and running, you'll have people that are then moving their Lightning nodes and their Bitcoin nodes that are currently hosting on Tor. And we'll start seeing them moving those over to the Cloak network. What's surprising to me, and this is something that I learned from Jonathan, is that, when the Snowden thing went down, it was disclosed that the NSA had de-anonymized certain users on Tor. Like that was disclosed way back when the Snowden files were released. People are still using Tor, and even very technical people are still using Tor, thinking that they're doing it completely anonymously, and that's just not the case anymore. And I think if you understand some of the politics behind Tor and the Tor Foundation and where some of their funding comes from and who some of their executives are, it's very concerning that as many people who use Tor every day are doing it thinking that they're using something that is completely private and anonymous, because it's not.
One of the chair of the board used to be the CEO of Team Simero, uh, which was basically selling a lot of the net flow data that they were accumulating to the DoD and other government organizations for intelligence purposes. So you had someone who was providing some of the infrastructure for, if you were downloading a Tor client, you were also getting added to the ASCII keys for databases and selected for targeting.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, that is our time, guys. If you don't know about Cloaked Wireless, give it a shot. If you are signing up for Bitcoin things, you may end up getting a free trial if you start seeing it more. And we will have a live deal in the Lightning Venture Syndicate. If you want more information on that, just reach out at ltng.ventures. This is our second investment in Cloaked, and we are excited to back these two all stars again.
Thank you for having us on
And
again.
Mike, yeah, man, thanks so much for having us, Mike.
all right, cheers.